Hello, and thank you for stopping by the Stuff I Heard podcast. This is your host, Josh Peak. Hey, everybody. How is it going? How are things? How are tricks? Today is January the 19th, 2018. Lots of stuff has popped up on Netflix recently and on different podcasts that I listen to that have been very interesting. Most currently, I am watching the Season 2 of The Punisher. This is a Marvel series that sort of wasn't supposed to happen, if that makes sense. Disney bought Marvel, and there was this whole thing about Marvel being somewhat PG or PG-13 so that all the kids could watch it and that kind of stuff. And The Punisher is not a PG or PG-13 character. He is a rated R character because unlike other superheroes that punch and do the pow, kick, blammo, knock your opponent out and subdue them, the Punisher just straight kills people. I mean, there is no nicety about what he does. If something's been done wrong and he feels that he needs to step in, he's going to just annihilate people. And in one particular scene, I counted off, I think it was episode 3 or 4. I'm not giving anything away by telling you any of this. Episode 3 or 4, I counted off one scene where he killed like 13 people that were trying to kill him and a bunch of other people. And I was like, well, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was like counting them off as it happened. It's pretty entertaining, knowing that it's a fictional show and it's a fictional character. And there's a dialogue between him and a police officer who's like a local yokel cop. And she says something about, we need to just do this and do that. And he was like, have you ever actually pulled your weapon out of your holster? Have you actually ever shot at anyone? And he's supposed to be playing a character who is a veteran who's seen it and done it all. And if you watch season 1, you get a background story of him and what he's been through and why he is that way. So I've only seen like 4 episodes so far this season, and I got to tell you right off the bat, I'm hooked. This is one series. I know that Netflix is losing the Marvel series to the Disney Plus media platform, and I really hope they don't get a hold of the Punisher. I hope that they let Netflix just keep trucking right along with it, or if they decide to bring it along, if they allow him just to keep doing what they're doing with the rated R version, just because it needs to be at that level. There is also a movement on social media, mainly Twitter, by Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Kingpin on Daredevil. I don't know if he started it or if fans of the show started it, but they're signing a petition to bring back Daredevil. Now, I understand that this is nothing to do with what Netflix wants or anything like that. It is a contract issue where Disney has bought the rights to the franchise. And, I've heard my wife talk about listening to a podcast where she says, or I heard this guy say, they're considering it. So hopefully a petition will help that happen. I have said in the past that I think that Vincent D'Onofrio playing Kingpin is probably one of the best villains ever played on any show ever. Just because he is a character that is riddled with a story that you feel for him. You feel sad for him. You feel scared of him. You feel, that he is a worthy adversary of our hero. And let's face it, that's what makes a show, is if you have a worthy adversary. That's something that the Punisher seems to do really well with too. Not to give anything away because they've advertised it, but season 2 has a guy that they call Jigsaw, and Jigsaw is his equal. If you watch The Matrix and you got Neo, he is his Mr. Smith. He is the alternate agent who's going to level out the playing field and make it worthwhile. I mean, you got to have an adversary worthwhile. Let's face it, Batman, his best adversary was the Joker, and you watched it. Not only for the fact that you would see Batman use some cool tools, but you knew that the Joker was going to be there no matter what. I mean, Batman would, do all kinds of stuff to try and stop him, and he'd win some fights, he'd lose some fights. But in the end, you knew the Joker was coming back for more. Because that's what kept the story going. He was is it the protagonist that they call it? The protagonist? Antagonist? I don't know. Whatever. He was the bad guy. He was the bad guy you look forward to seeing. When he entered the scene, you're like, oh, this is going to get good. That's kind of how I felt about Kingpin on the Daredevil series. And that's how I feel about Jigsaw on the Punisher series. It is worth checking out. Go see it now. It just came out, and I will I'll probably talk about it on the next episode because I'm going to continue watching it. I'm already hooked. It's like one of those binge-worthy shows. You just start watching them and you can't stop. I am also, because I have multiple interests, I am also watching the new season of The Grand Tour on Amazon Prime. The Grand Tour used to be the three guys from Top Gear. If anybody ever watched Top Gear on the BBC, it's James May, Richard Hammonds, and Jeremy Clarkson. They basically, one of them got fired and the other two quit from the show, and they started doing basically a similar show on Amazon Prime. The first episode of the new season is out, and to start it off right off the bat, they're in downtown Detroit, where, you know, let's face it, that's where they used to make all the American muscle cars, and now it's kind of a deserted town, and there's a lot of decay and a lot of vacantness, and you know, people were without jobs and they abandoned their houses, and you know, the whole city is sort of going through a strange regrowth right now, a strange new development, trying to figure out what to do next with their lives. So, you know, Jeremy Clarkson is the narrative of this story as it starts out, and he's like, you know, so we decided to go back to where Motor City is, because that's what Detroit's called. It's called Motor City. And he said, and, you know, we decided to come here with some American muscle cars and have fun. And they come up in a 700 plus horsepower Mustang, a Dodge Challenger Hellcat. That's the one with the, oh no, not the Hellcat, the Demon. That's the one with the 825 horsepower motor. And one of the other guys has a Camaro that was customized by Hennessy, and it's called the Exorcist. It's got 1,000 horsepower. 1,000 horsepower is crazy. I heard them talking during the episode, and he said he gets like 3.5 miles per gallon. So it's just guzzling down the gas just as he's cruising along. And they play in the city. There's some scenes where they drag race on the street, and there's some scenes where they make a course going through factories and stuff like that are abandoned. There's a scene where they do a sound check, where they do burnouts inside of a building that used to be a theater that Henry Ford's family had built. That's now a parking garage. And it's very interesting. It's a good show. I love the fact that these guys are very humorous, but they're also very informative, and they're just fun to watch. When you watch them, it's sort of like watching friends hang out. And that's sort of like listening to podcasts. When you listen to podcasts where the group know each other, and you put on your headset and you listen to them, and you feel like you're part of the conversation. You feel like you're in on the jokes. Whenever something comes up and it's like a callback joke, you're like, oh, you got him with that one. How about that? You know, it's that feeling of connectiveness that I think a lot of us are missing in our day-to-day lives, that weirdly enough technology makes us feel a part of, even though we're not a part of it. Does that make any sense? Like when I listen to Joe Rogan have a conversation with Bert Kreischer and Ari Shaffir and Tom Segura whenever they're doing their yearly Sober October challenge, part of the fun of it is you feel like you're part of their group. You feel like a part of the community, like you're in it. Like all of their jokes you sort of get because if you're a fan of one of them, you're kind of a fan of all of them, and you find yourself listening to all of their podcasts, and whenever they get together to hang out on each other's podcasts, you're like, oh, it's a good one. It's going to be all of them together. I can't wait for this. So you tune in, right? It's sort of like the Avengers movie. If you're watching the Avengers, you watch everybody's individual movie, but when they get together, it's like, ooh, here we go. It's going to be good. Because, you know, that's what you want. You want the big thing. You want the big production. You want everybody to do what they do best. And in a comedy podcast, when comedians all get together, it's just funny. It's a fun hang. Watching the Top Gear show, they're funny, but they're also, you know, informative. So you're going to learn a little bit and you're going to laugh. But more than anything, you're going to feel part of the community. And part of the reason that I talk about a lot of the stuff that I watch and I listen to is I kind of want you guys to do it too, because I feel like if I do that, we're sort of building a community amongst us. You and me, the listener. I know that sometimes it seems as though we're all sort of going along with whatever it is we do by ourselves, and that we don't have connectivity to other people. You know, let's face it, when I was a kid, that we had 3 major channels, and if you watched whatever it was on TV the night before, you came to work or school the next day and you're like, oh, did you see blah, blah, blah? And you talk about it, right? It was something that everybody collectively did as a nation. So whatever the hit show was, we would all try and tune in at the same time because there was no DVR, there was no streaming, there was no whenever I feel like it, I'll watch it, or whenever I get time, I'll watch it. If you didn't watch it, you just missed it. That was it. And we sort of lost that with the convenience of streaming technology. You know, nowadays, a hit show can come out, and if nobody watches it, it may disappear. I mean, if it's kind of lost in the shuffle without promotion, or without, you know, some kind of eyeballs tuning into it anyway, it will go away. You know, they say that Breaking Bad was almost canceled after the first season because no one was watching it, and then apparently it became one of the biggest shows ever after that because people started word of mouth going, oh my God, have you seen this series? It's really good. And you know, some stuff's like that. You know, Seinfeld apparently was like that. The first season it came out, the network, a lot of network execs wanted to shut it down, but the head guy was like, no, I think this will turn around, and it did. It turned around in a big way. It became one of their biggest hits. But you know, the same could be said about anything in life. You know, if you don't have the eyeballs watching it, then something has got to bring it to it, or it's going to It's going to just go away. It's going to vanish. I was a huge fan of Bert Kreischer on his show Hurt Bert or the Bertcast. I mean, his Travel Channel show Trip Flip or Bert the Conqueror. Now, Travel Channel has just rifled through presidents apparently and has just not run their programming like normal. Like every time they come in with a new president, they would say, oh no, I don't like that, I don't like this, we're going to get rid of that, we're going to do this different. And they would cancel the show, and then they would look at ratings and they go, wait, we're getting really good ratings from this, let's call him back. And he talks about it a lot on his podcast about how they would fire him every season and then they would rehire him. And he did 7 years of television for them on that kind of system. And when he left the show, like, they didn't want to promote his show at all. Matter of fact, his last season was buried on like a Tuesday afternoon instead of the normal late night spot that it used to have. Thank goodness I had my DVR set up, so I got to watch all of it. But if it wasn't for that ability to record it, it would have just gone away completely. Now that he's been off the show and his comedy career has taken a huge upswing, they're starting to show clips and stuff like that online, and their numbers are, you know, through the roof with people watching it because they love to watch him on the show. And they're advertising on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and people are tagging him, and anybody who follows him is also watching it going, wait, I missed this show? Holy crap. And they're going back and they're watching him online. Well, because of that, numbers have really increased and interest has increased, and now apparently they're contacting him saying, oh, we'd love for you to do this show again. And he was like, you know what? No, I'm done. I gave you a good 7 years of my life doing these shows, and I enjoyed making the television I did, but it did nothing for me. It did nothing for my career. It didn't advance me any. It didn't increase my numbers. Doing comedy increased my numbers. Now, he'll be honest and say that it did give him life experiences, which, you know, better informs you as a guy who's going to go on stage and talk about his life. But you got to live life in order to talk about it, and in a way, it did give him that. It gave him those life experiences. You know, today, I just listened to the Joe Rogan episode. Let me bring up the number, because everybody always asks, you didn't say what number it was on. Dude, when you talk about this kind of stuff, let us know what the thing is so that we can look it up. Okay, so if you're new to the internet and you don't know how to navigate it, there is a Joe Rogan Experience. The latest episode came out Thursday, episode 1227. He did an interview with Mike Tyson. The Mike Tyson, the Iron Mike Tyson. Former undisputed heavyweight boxing champion of the world, Mike Tyson. Mike apparently has his own podcast called Hot Boxing. Now, there's an interesting twist here because Mike now apparently is an owner of a legalized weed shop and a ranch that's centered around fitness and wellness out in California, and apparently it's all going to go live soon. He came on the show to talk about his boxing career and his transition. He It's a very interesting conversation because you can tell listening to Joe that he is a fan. He grew up watching Mike on television, as I did, watching Mike Tyson be the dominant force that he was in the ring. There were conversations when I was a kid about getting pay-per-view and, Mike's going to be on pay-per-view. Well, do I want to spend that much money? Because he's going to knock somebody out in less than a minute. And those kind of fights would happen often. I mean, he would enter the ring and like a tornado of pit bulls come after somebody, and it was all they could do to get out of the way of a fury of fists before they got knocked out. Mike was without a doubt the scariest man in the ring that I've ever seen. Not that I've watched a lot of boxing. I've probably seen close to 200 fights in my life, just watching on TV. But Mike Tyson was by far the most intimidating, frightening man to come after somebody. And you could see it in his opponent's eyes. Whenever he would come out of the corner, the look in their eyes was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like he had that fear of intimidation in his corner at all times. Until he got beat the first time. I mean, once he got beat the first time, then opponents would get in the ring and go, okay, this guy beat him. Maybe there's something I got to do here. Maybe there's a technique. Maybe I can outlast him. Maybe, whatever. So they would try. And, as Mike got older and as his interest in boxing kind of faded, you could tell he was not the same boxer. And he lost a few, and he ended up, eventually quitting. Retiring, I guess you'd say. He retired. So anyway, it's a great listen. Go check it out. You're going to enjoy it. If you're a fan of Mike Tyson's, you're going to be like, dude, this was the interview I wanted to hear. This is good. This made me happy. So, switching gears, let's also talk about stuff I heard. The Bertcast. Episode 326 came out this past Tuesday. Bert Kreischer sat down with another fellow comedian, Chris Distefano. It's hard to pronounce. Distefano. It's hard to pronounce because I don't have that language thing in my brain that helps me understand how to read it. He apparently has a special on Comedy Central called Size 38 Waist. It premiered Friday the 18th. Again, it's on Comedy Central, so unless they're putting it online, I don't know how to watch it. He is extremely funny, though. This is a funny podcast because he makes Bert laugh so hard he almost passes out a few times. And in turn, his laughter is infectious, so listening to him made me want to laugh really hard. It's a fun podcast. This guy's kind of lived a very interesting life, and it's just a fun listen. This is 2 hours of just fun. Now, I will say that the first 20-something minutes of this is Bert reading ads with his wife, which, let's face it, if you've heard Bert read podcast ads before, you can skip past these. Just hit the fast forward button. Even I hit the fast forward button now on this one. I was just like, Jesus, Bert, 20-something minutes worth of you trying to sell whatever. I don't even care right now. Just skip. Oh, here we go. Here's the interview. And then I started listening to it. If anybody's listening to my podcast and I got ads in the beginning and you're like, dude, do we really need to hear you talk about XYZ? And you want to skip past it, just hit the little fast forward button. That's totally fine. I get it. I do the same thing. One of the conveniences of listening to Joe's podcast is he does all his in the beginning and then he talks about it again at the end. And I just hit that fast forward and skip past it and then listen and talk. So, anywho, go check that out. I think you'll enjoy it. What else? Oh, I'm also watching something on Netflix called Big Mouth. Now, Big Mouth is a cartoon on Netflix that is not appropriate for children. It's comedians doing voices of middle school young boys and girls who are going through puberty for the first time. And it's really inappropriate, and my mom will probably be like, oh my god, it's so gross, oh my god, I can't believe they said that, oh my god. It's actually interesting because it's a lot of the things that I thought as a young boy, and it's a lot of things that, when you have hormones running through your brain at that age, you can't think clearly and you make a lot of stupid mistakes and you say a lot of stupid things and you don't know what's going on with your emotions or your body or your feelings or any of that stuff, and you hurt your friends' feelings, and you sometimes fight with people you don't intend to, and you make a lot of dumb mistakes. And this sort of shows that. They did an interesting thing where sort of to visualize what the kids are thinking at times whenever they're feeling like they're going through something emotional. They imagine a giant hairy monster, and the hairy monster is their, if you want to call it, sex drive or their emotions or puberty in general. That's what that is. Anyway, it's a fun watch. I enjoy it. I'm watching several episodes. It's like 27 minutes long each, just less than 30 minutes each. They're really funny and really, really fun to watch. But anywho, what else? I don't know. Our weather here in South Carolina is doing something weird right now. We've been having some unusually warm days. Today the high was like 67, and then I think by Monday the high is supposed to be in the 30s. I know that my dad and Trish live up in Maine, and they have some land down in Georgia, and they've already bugged out and gotten down to Georgia just in time for a huge winter storm to hit Maine. I looked at the Weather Channel earlier, and there's a large part of the U.S. that's just under a blanket of snow. I imagine that cold weather is going to bring some weather down this way, but we got one cold day coming up on Monday, and then after that it's supposed to warm back up to like normal-ish temperatures. I say normal-ish. You know, it's like in the 40s and 50s. Is that normal? Maybe it's normal. I don't know. I don't consider it like wintertime until it's like in the 40s every day. If it's in the 50s, it's kind of like spring to me. You know, you sort of expect plants to start blooming flowers, and you get the little buds on the ends of them and stuff like that. But hopefully it'll get cold enough this year that it'll kill off some of these insects around here. These mosquitoes have had way too much water to breed in, and I'm really hoping the cold will do something to them. I know out there there's some what is it, entomologists, the study of insects. There's some entomologist out there who's like, you know, actually it just freezes them into a dormant state, and then they reemerge and they come after you like a swarm. I don't know. There's no entomologist listening to this, is there? If you are, reach out and say, hey, you're completely wrong, jerk, and tell me, you know, how I'm wrong. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking about whatever, because, hey, let's face it, this is a free podcast, and you get what you pay for, and this is stuff I heard, so it can literally be completely wrong, and it's still stuff I heard. It could be stuff I made up, and then it's stuff you heard. Ooh, I just went 360 degrees there. You got the whole spectrum. I went today with my wife, and we went to King Hefe to eat lunch. I don't know how I convinced her to do it, but she sort of brought it up a little bit nonchalantly, like, you know, I guess we could go here, or, you know, we can maybe go to King Hefe. And I was like, there we go. That's what we're doing. We're going to King Hefe. And we went down there and had some tacos, and it was delicious. And I've got to have King Hefe twice this week. I feel like a lucky boy. On this keto diet, there's not a whole lot that I can eat that's served in a restaurant because I'm staying away from carbs and sugar. And when I go to King Hefe, I get some tacos that are wrapped in a bib lettuce wrap. But I make sure to get the stuff that's like low in carbs and low in sugar. And it was delicious. We got a great meal. They also make a pork skins that is fresh, like they're fresh made, fresh cooked, and I get that with the queso dip, which is cheese, and it is yummy, and it is keto friendly, and I like it. I like it a lot, Jenny. But anywho, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna line up time to talk to the owner of King Hefe. Kyle, if you're listening to this, I'm not exactly sure how to approach you on this. Do I hit you up? Do you hit me up? Is there like a thing we do? Are you gonna go, hey man, I wanna, or should I reach out to you and go, hey, would you like to do this today? My wife even asked, she says, are you gonna have him over here? Because the studio, you can't really tell watching this on YouTube, but where I'm talking to you guys at is actually in my bedroom. I have an office off to the side of our bedroom. And we've kind of talked about the idea of converting one of the extra bedrooms into a podcast studio. It's basically just a reason for me to get all this crap out of my wife's way. And also, just in case I have guests over, so they're not coming into our bedroom to hang out. So, I'm going to feel presumptuous. Is that the word? Presumptuous? I'm going to feel like I'm highfalutin and say that I'm going to have a podcast studio possibly this year. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We're going to aim for that and see what happens. I am looking at rates right now, trying to decide on our vacation. My wife and I are both doing some research, trying to figure out what we're going to do this year for a vacation. We've talked about in the past, we've gone to Disney a couple years in a row, and we both mentioned this past time that maybe we'll take this year off since the Star Wars land will not be open until probably December of this year. So even if we went like towards that time, it's going to be so busy and so packed, it's going to be miserable to have an experience. So we talked about, all right, let's just skip this year and then we'll go maybe next year. Maybe. We'll see. It's going to be hard to stay away next year. I mean, let's face it. We've been going consistently, and then to take a year off, by the time it's that year again, you're going to go, all right, it's time for us to go now. You know, you sort of get that nervous itch. Like you're like, okay, we haven't done this in a while. Let's go do this. So we're probably going to do that in 2021. 2021. Who would have thought that we'd make it this long? 2021. It seems like the future was going to be more with flying cars and crap like that. Is it just me? I mean, you watch 2001 The Space Odyssey and then the sequel 2010, and you know, we were out in outer space trying to colonize other planets, and you know, we had AIs already. Well, I guess we do have AIs right now. They're not like the creepy robot thing going, Hal, blah, 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 you know. But still, I mean, I guess it could. We have Watson, whatever Watson does. Apparently Watson can vote on, or can win Jeopardy against Ken Jennings. But I don't have a Watson here. I do have an Alexa. I hope she's not listening right now. She'd be like, can I help you? I got an Alexa in the living room. Today she went off while I was watching The Punisher. They were having a scene, and usually you hear some word that has an X in it and she'll perk up and she's like, I did not find what you're looking for. Today something was said on the show and she immediately started telling me where I was located in the world. You are so and so miles from this location, located on the eastern seacoast, and blah blah blah. And she just kept talking and talking and talking. And I was like, Alexa, stop. And she was just like, bloop bloop. And I was like, what spurred you to go on a rant like that, woman? I don't know. Bert had a joke about it in his when I went to see him in Charlotte last year, about how he's always yelling at Alexa. He says, it sounds like an abusive relationship. I'm always like, shut up, woman! And I'm kind of the same way. I guess we kind of all are at times. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. It's almost 30 minutes, and I'm kind of sleepy. I'm going to take a nap. Hope everybody's doing well. It is Saturday, and I'm going to take a nap because I can't when I want to. And I can today. So, y'all be good to one another. Please feel free to rate, subscribe, review, share with your friends, start the conversation, be part of the conversation. If you want to write me, make sure to check out the Instagram page, Stuff I Heard Podcast, or you can reach me on Gmail at Stuff I Heard Podcast. Okay? Y'all take care now. Bye.